Just call 911. Just call 911. All right, I'd like to call the Eufaula City Council meeting, May 2nd, 2022 at 5:30 to order. Ms. Cox is going to say our prayer for us, and we'll follow along the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please follow me. Dear Heavenly Father, we just come to you tonight. We just ask that you guide the council as they're making decisions on behalf of the citizens of the city of Eufaula, Lord, that they be gracious and listening to what that the citizens understand that this is a hard job, Lord, and that they would support the council members that are here tonight. Lord, we ask this in your most precious name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Roll call, Mrs. Cox, please.
Councilor Davis.
Here.
Councilor Johnson. Here. Mayor Warren.
Here.
Councilor Upton.
Here.
Councilor Kirby.
Here. All right, let's start out with consent agenda. Approval of minutes, regular council meeting, April 4th, 2022. Approval of the treasurer's report. Approval of the April 2022 payroll figures for the general fund in the amount of $88,469.66. And the receipt of claims for the city of Eufaula. Council,
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Councilor Davis.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mauser. Yes. Mayor Warren.
Yes.
Councilor Upton.
Yes.
Councilor Kirby.
Yes. All yes, that motion carries. Let's move on to item 9. Recognition and presentation of the City of Eufaula Citizen Excellent Award to Mrs. Smith. Would you please come forward and let's kind of get over. Let's get over here. Can I get everybody to stand, please? Here's the middle. Paper man, Mr. Pink, Superintendent Smith. You're a great lady. I've known you for many years. It is my distinct honor as mayor on behalf of the council and the city of Eufaula to honor you with the City of Eufaula Citizens Excellence Award. This award recognizes the tremendous amount, effort, and sacrifices you have made to make our community one of the best in the nation. You have served Eufaula and its students with distinction and care. Under your leadership, our children have been given the opportunity to excel, and we have the results to prove it. Our academics are some of the top in the region. Our athletics, music, and extracurriculars are competing for state level championships in every category. Our schools are recognized as the top 100 in the nation, which is great. These are just a few of the impacts that your work produced. You have set the standards for excellence, and our community will reap the benefits of your leadership for generations. Through your vision and partnership, Eufaula's future is optimistic. As much as we don't want you to retire,
Thanks, Otto.
we know we all have to at some time, but you've earned it, and hold your head up high. It's great.
Thank you. Thank you.
You got anything to say to us?
I do have something to say. Of course, I want to thank the city council and the city leaders for giving me this award. I appreciate it. But like Deb knows, it takes a village to do anything like this. And so we've had a lot of accomplishments. Like you said, it was not me personally. It was this tribe of a few I brought with me tonight. And so, of course, I want to thank them, you know, my brothers and sisters, my dad, my kids, my grandkids, my Pete's, my bestie. All of those people were here for my journey, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
We appreciate it. All right.
Okay.
Yes.
Or can we? Yes. Okay. We'll sneak out. Thank you all. You ready?
Let everybody calm down here a minute before we start. All right, we'll move on to item 10. Consideration of acceptance, approval, adoption, rejection, amendment, and or postponement to approve using an exterior wall of the community center for the painting of mural during the Vision Eufaula Mural Festival. And we have a Ms. Sellers that'd like to speak on that, I believe.
Mayor Warren, City Council, and ladies. I would just like to specifically say that we are working hard to raise funds to purchase the paint and the supplies for the murals in Eufaula. And all of you present, I know, have seen the mural that was painted a couple of years ago. And every time I am at the museum working on Saturdays, there are so many people who stop to look at the mural and take pictures with their families. And our business owners have been very good about sending people to the mural who may not have known about it coming into town. But we are requesting permit to have a mural painted on the building, on this community center. It's a very busy area, from football games, basketball games, people traveling just generally in town. We really enjoy a mural to be painted on the side of the building. So we are asking that you agree to a mural to be painted. A mural festival, which is sponsored by Vision Eufaula, which I am a member and board member. We are responsible for the very first mural that was painted in town. So we have 6 contracts signed already for murals to be painted in the city. And we have an artist coming from Arkansas, one from Missouri, and then Oklahoma artists are involved. So we have those artists who are very much interested in being here to paint the mural.
Well, I think it's a great idea. Have you picked out the scenes or anything? Do you have any idea what?
That would be up to the artist, and the mural, whatever an artist would choose to do, has to be approved by the city, since this is your property. And also, it would be approved by Vision Eufaula.
Any other questions for Ms. Sellers? I make a motion that we approve. Ms. Scott?
Counselor Davis?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mauser?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Counselor Upton?
Yes.
Counselor Hurst?
Yes.
All yes, that motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Sellers.
Thank you. And by the way, in order to raise funds for the mural, we are selling tickets for $10 each. And the funds raised by the sales of the tickets will go toward the cost to do the murals. And also, the ticket is chance to win a trip to New York City for 2 round-trip ticket and lodging for a weekend. To be able to see Tracy Stone, who is the artist of the mural that is now painted, to be able to go to her museum in New Jersey to see what all she has done. And she will be here next September the 17th.
Awesome.
Where do you get the ticket?
I happen to have some in my.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 11. Consideration of acceptance, approval, adoption, rejection, amendment, and/or postponement to authorize the mayor's signature and take action on an Oklahoma Department of Commerce Capital Improvement Plan grant application. Mr. Jones, would you bring the council up to date?
Miss Jennifer Phipps from EODD, she's gonna make a presentation. She called me a week or so ago and said that the city of Eufaula has not had a capital improvement grant since 2006. And so we're in line. This is a fully funded project through the Oklahoma Department of Commerce. They will come in and assess GIS all of our assets, streets, water, sewer, you name it, and put it into a CIP plan. And so she's going to make a presentation on it. The next 6 items on the agenda are related to her presentation now. So
You have it.
Hello. So like Jeff said, we haven't done capital improvement plans since 2006. I'm with Eastern Oklahoma Development District. We just come in and what we do is the money comes from the Department of Commerce. We use that money and we do an inventory of all the city's assets. Size, crack condition, maintenance supply, cost of replacement on all your lines, valves, hydrants, and all that. And what we're doing tonight is actually the application for that. It will not cost the town anything, for a little bit of time to sit down with me and go over everything that I gathered. That's pretty much it. It's been a while, but we're really, it's not going to be an update. This is probably going to be a brand new CIP. So we'll be working on that. It'll probably take about a year to complete. One of the agenda items is asking to put together a small committee. That committee will look over all the work that I do and approve it at the end of the project.
Council, do you have any questions? If not, I make a motion to approve.
No, second.
yeah, do each item one at a time.
Councilor Davis?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mauser?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. All yes, that motion carries. Let's go on to item 12, consideration of acceptance, approval, adoption, rejection, amendment, and/or postponement to authorize the mayor's signature on Oklahoma Department of Commerce Capital Improvement Plan resolution. Council?
Make a motion to accept.
I'll second.
Councilor Davis?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mauser?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Councilor Upton?
Yes.
Councilor Kirby?
Yes.
All yes, that motion carries. We'll go on to item 13. Consideration of acceptance, approval, adoption, rejection, amendment, and/or postponement to authorize the mayor's signature and take action on an anti-displacement plan.
I'll make a motion. I'll second.
Councilor Davis?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mauser?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Councilor Upton? Councilor Kirby?
Yes.
All yes, that motion carries. We'll go on to item 14, consideration of acceptance, approval, adoption, rejection, amendment, and/or postponement to authorize the mayor's signature and action on a fair housing resolution. Council?
I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second.
Councilor Davis?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mauser?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Councilor Upton?
Yes.
Councilor Kirby?
Yes.
All yes, that motion carries. We're going to item 15, consideration of acceptance, approval, adoption, rejection, amendment, and/or postponement to authorize the mayor's signature and take action on citizen participation plan. We have two speakers. Okay,
Drum roll.
okay. Thank you. Council,
I'll make the motion to approve.
okay, I'll second.
Councilor Davis?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mauser?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Councilor Upton?
Yes.
Councilor Kirby?
Yes.
All yes, the motion carries. We'll go on to item 16, consideration of acceptance, approval, adoption, rejection, amendment, and postponement to authorize the mayor's signature and take action on a local planning activities committee. We have, y'all pay, okay. Council?
She's gone.
This is
Oh,
the,
I'm sorry.
one where we have to have
Three. The three I was going to recommend is, the mayor, myself, and then, Adam White, the economic development director.
Do we need to vote on?
Yes.
That'd be, yeah,
Okay.
Yes.
that'd be part of it.
So I nominate Todd, Jeb, and Adam to be on the local planning activities committee. Authorize the mayor's signature.
I'll second it.
Councilor Davis?
Yes.
Vice Mayor?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Councilor Upton?
Yes.
Councilor Kirby?
Yes.
Oh, yes, that motion carries. We'll go on to item 17, consideration of acceptance, approval, adoption, rejection, amendment, and/or postponement to consideration of acceptance, approval, adoption, rejection, amendment, and/or postponement of an application for change from R1 residential to commercial general at the following location: the west 90 feet of Lot 4 in Block 50 of the city of Eufaula, commonly known as the corner of Lot of F Street and Lincoln Avenue. Council?
We have a, Mayor, we do have a presenter here from Green.
That's right. Well, and I've got,
Okay.
I'm glad you called it to my attention. He's snuck in on me.
No, could I make a comment prior to the public? It might shorten public comments.
Okay, Ms. Wall?
I was asked to research the issue of whether or not a council member who works for the company can vote or make motions on this. And I found nothing to prohibit him from doing so. I sought the opinion in writing from a gentleman I consider one of our best municipal attorneys in the state, Matt Love, and Matt confirmed what I had found, that assuming a council member does not own any interest in the business and his position is not affected by how he votes, then he has no prohibition against making a motion or voting. And he did put that in writing, and I did pass that along to Mr. Kirby. So before we vote tonight, there may be some protests forming about him voting on this. And I'm here to tell you that there's nothing that prohibits him making the motion or voting. He has assured me he owns no interest in that company, and his position does not improve or sink because he votes or doesn't vote a certain way. So with that assurance, I just have to tell him that he legally can vote and he legally can make the motion. You may not like that law. We don't always like all of the laws in the state of Oklahoma or the federal government, but we are bound to go by them. So he has the right to do that as long as he assures us he doesn't own any part of the business and it's not going to factor into his employment. And he has done that to me with several conversations. Proceed.
Okay, Mrs. Watts?
I understand what you're saying, Ms. Wall, but it appears to me that you're trying something. No communication, nobody talking to anybody, planning or whatever they're gonna do. Don't you think it's, he was voted in to represent the community? District 4, Ward 4. Okay, Mr. Kirby.
I am the advisor for the council and you need to address the council. And if they have a question, they will ask me. But I'm not
Did they ask
the,
you following up when you were speaking up already?
they have asked me tonight.
Okay,
So, but
To
I'm
the
not,
council.
I'm not the answer person for someone who takes the podium.
okay. Well, did you read my letter that I put in?
Yes, ma'am.
That all of you already did?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I don't have to read it. Well, I'm against this. We have all kind of problems, nobody's talking, and I'm gonna say this. I campaigned very hard for Mr. Kirk to put him in, okay? And I feel like the communication is a big deal in this kind of business. He has talked to the residents. He haven't talked to none of the people. He never talked to me about what's going on. Well, I don't think that's right. You know, we are the community. They have a right to represent the community from Eufaula too. And that means communication, talking to people. You know, if you let people know what you're gonna do. I think I need to take a breath. I think Ms. McCoy will sit up here and then she will want to speak. I'm just gonna sit down for a minute. Ms.
Thank you,
McCoy,
Ms.
can she
Watts.
come up?
Yes, she's next on the list. Mrs. McCoy? Do I get a chance to answer? Or do you get to listen?
I'm here tonight because of the rezoning that y'all are considering, which is right behind our church. I feel like that Extreme is doing well in this community, and I know they bring in a lot of money. But this is not about money. It's about the moral standard of this community and this city of Eufaula. I think they've got enough property. They've bumped up against a lot of the residents there. Since Extreme's been here, there's nothing but loud music. People can't sleep at night when they have these concerts. And we understand that. They're here to make money. We understand all of that. But we want you to also consider what we've been through as a community, a Black community. We've been on that side, that community's been there for as long as I can remember. And I know it's older than many of y'all sitting here. That church has been in this community for 139 years. It'll be 140 years in November. I don't know Mr. Kirby, and I know that we've had a conversation with our pastor, our newly selected pastor. But it's like Emma said, there's a lack of communication in the community about what's going on, our concerns, what we're concerned about in that community. And nobody has talked to us in this community about anything. I understand Extreme has a business, but I think they put enough stuff around there. And this rezoning that you're getting ready to do, you can't even tell me what he's gonna put in there. He can put a massage parlor there. That's what's in your list that could be approved. Am I right or am I wrong? He can put anything he wants to there. He can present that he's gonna put a maintenance building there. But he can put a massage parlor right there. And I don't think it's right. And it shouldn't be anywhere close to the church.
There's drinking and liquor being served in so many feet of that church. We have not said anything. We've had people come and park inside, on our parking lot, never tell us anything, leaving beer cans and trash. Those things have actually happened. And I know that for a fact. Now, I know y'all probably don't know it for a fact, because you haven't seen it. But we've seen it. It's getting so bad that one of the ladies here tonight, two of my cousins at that church has to block it off to keep them from parking in our parking lot. That's not right. Y'all know it's not right. Y'all know it wouldn't be happening at a white church. And I'm not being racist, I've never been racist. I just retired as a warden at Just on Correctional Center. I've been in the Department of Corrections for 38 years. I know how things go. I know the policies and the procedures that you have to follow, and I respect that. So all we're asking is Extreme in this city council respect us as a community, as a Black community, as that Black church being there for 140 years. That's what we're asking for. He doesn't have to have that rezone for business. How about doing something for the Black community over there? He could donate, he could build something on that property that would benefit that community. Not a maintenance building or massage parlor or whatever it turns out to be. So that's what I'm asking you to consider, that everything is not always about money. It's the respect of the people in that community. It's not right. Yeah, he may have a legal standing to do that, but is it right? Is it right for Mr. Kirby to make a vote and vote? He might not own anything, but he works for that company. You know, and I know, if I want to keep my job, I'm voting with my boss want me to vote for. I'm not going to vote against him. So let's not try to act like we're ignorant to the fact that we know what the vote, how the vote is. We've asked that he excuse himself from this vote and make an motion. And if you hear anything about that community that you supposedly represent, you would. I'm not talking about legal. I'm talking about doing what's right for the right reasons. Any questions for me?
Thank you. I would. Council?
Mayor,
Yes.
Philip Hale's here from Extreme.
Okay.
Emma wants to. Can she come back and finish?
Yeah. I couldn't hear.
Okay. What we're talking about is, right, is the parents and doing the right thing. You know, when you're elected to be a city official, and the residents and community, you're supposed to meet with them. Or I know you can't do it every day, or then sometimes meet with them, kind of give them a little what's going on, and how a town hall would be good. Just about 30 minutes or an hour, and let people know what you're doing. It might be better that we wouldn't be have to stand up here and address this issue. You know, I've had a lot of problems. I don't know if all of you have been on the committee, councilors, but that's the way I feel about it. I feel like we've been pushed on. Nobody communicates, nobody cares. And how far is it going? I have property there too. When is it going to stop? Do you all think about the residents that you serve, want to serve? You treat people as you wish to be treated. You know, I'm not against city government, but I'm against people who just don't do what they want to do without even saying anything to anybody. Right is right, wrong is wrong. So now you're standing up here looking at me like, what are they doing? Think about it. You know, y'all might need to say have a little prayer within yourself. Do the right thing. So, and now I was told in Chicago, minding my own business, that extremists gonna take all the property over there and majority of Mr. McCarthy stuff out his residence. And you know, I brought it up because you can hear people say anything. And I didn't pay that much attention. Start paying attention. I've been coming to the meetings because of medical problems with my family. And I'm very upset about this. And I helped campaign for some of you, most of you guys. And I feel real bad about it. I talked to people about it, built you up. They're great people. And look at this. And I come to a meeting and all this was going on. I didn't know one thing about it. Nobody said anything. Yeah, I know what they said, the legal part of it is the appearance of it. I would refuse myself. So I'm talking to the counselor. If you do the right thing, think about it. If you take time to think about things and investigate things and see where we help the extreme and the community. There's a lot of things going on over there that's just downright shame. But you know, you got to live with yourself. And I don't know if you believe in Jesus, but he sees you, he hears you, and he knows your heart. And that's all I got to say. I might not win the war, but you're gonna know this battle is gonna be fought.
Thank you, Ms. Watts. Now then, sir, would you like to come up and address the council? I didn't have a yellow paper or, but
Mayor, Councilman, my name's Phil Hale. I'm with the CFO of the Streets and Roads. Yeah, we are requesting this on the rezone. It is going to be a laundry facility for our resort. And it's going to be a maintenance shed for our resort. The building itself is going to resemble a lot like what you've already seen, you know, on our property. Metal building, orange, black, colors like that. Chain link fence, we got chain link fence around it and stuff like that. As far as noise and stuff like that, you know, most of that stuff's gonna be happening during the week. I did talk to the pastor. I made a point to talk to the pastor, and also made a point to talk to the pastor and let him know that if he's got problems over there, he's got issues over there, let me know. Not let Dan know, but let me know. And I'll be happy to come over and sit down, meet, do whatever I need to do, try to make things collaborate with Extreme in the city, or in the members of the community. So I'm happy to do that. I don't have no problem doing that. I've been here for a year. I worked with Ron for over 35 years, well, 25 years. I had a long personal relationship with him for a long time. His intent, based off my past experience with him, is not to disrupt the community like we say. So I want to make sure that you know that I am available to come down and sit down. I gave my contact. I'll be happy to give you all my contact, and we'll be happy to sit down and discuss any of those issues.
But you're not our council.
hold on, now. Hold on.
No, I'll just.
Just face the council.
Yeah, no problem. But anyway, that's kind of our thing. We're gonna be building maintenance, you know, on the facility to be handling our condos and our cabins over at Yogi's. And like I said, it's gonna resemble a lot like what you've already experienced. If there's anything else,
Council, do you have any questions? I have one when you said a metal building. Because right now, metal buildings aren't allowed in the city limits of Eufaula, according to our ordinance.
That'll be as part of the build, the permit process, building permit process. And we can make them aware of what the restrictions are. And they are able to come and request an exception, but it'll be heard by the planning and zoning and follow the normal process that everyone else, anyone sitting in this room would have to follow. So.
Any other questions? Council?
I might say before you vote that a yes is a yes, a no is a no. And if anyone abstains, that's counted as a no. So I just think you all are aware of that, but I wanted to remind you that if you do abstain, that's like offering a no vote, because that's how it's going to be recorded. And there's a statute on that.
Mhm.
Mr. Moore, I just had one more comment.
Yes, ma'am. Quickly, please.
Okay, it will take a second. I just wanted to comment on, I didn't get your name.
Philip Hale. Philip Hale, did you?
Mr. Hale, I guess I'm confused because, there's other land there that he could build this, metal building on, closer to where there are properties. There's, the place where they put the boats and stuff, they can park those boats and stuff over there by, Mr. Carroll's property over there. Right across from the liquor store. So one of the things that I wanted to at least talk to him and talk to you about, why is it not a place, someplace different that he could build it at? Why does it have to be specific? That way you wouldn't have to rezone that for commercial and it can stay residential. Because we have elderly people in that community. We have people that are concerned about the things that go on right close to them, which, I mean, we've had a lot of issues. Mr. Hill just made the statement about, that's what I say. No, that's what I know. He doesn't know, but I know, because I've seen it. I'm not just saying something that I don't do anything without investigating. Because like I said, I used to build more. I don't make decisions off of hearsay. I make decisions off what I see and what I know of that. And I'm telling you, we've had issues with extreme. And like it was a lack of communication.
Thank you, ma'am. Council? Any other questions or debates?
Well, it's very similar to when we were approached about the apartments over there where the old swimming pool was and stuff. All the neighbors came in and spoke and all. They didn't want that there, and all of that. But, in Eufaula, we only have so much property. I mean, we know it isn't like we can spread out real far. We only have so much property. And, I think all of our neighborhoods over the years have had to change and adapt. Where I live at, for instance, the Eufaula dormitory in the Indian apartments, did that enhance my neighborhood particularly? No, it did not. But I haven't been against it. You know, they needed some place to put the dorm, they needed some place to build their housing. You know, it was never anything I came down and went against. I know people don't like change at all sometimes. They just want everything to stay the same, you know, and our community to stay the same. Let's don't change it at all, but it's going to happen. You know, I think the more we can accept that change is going to happen. You know, I mean, there have been years over there that our lake has been underutilized for, you know, at least 10 years, you know, before we actually started seeing any real tourism at all, you know, and so it's been a slow road, but, you know, we're actually, I believe, seeing good changes in the community. And I know it disrupts your neighborhood and everything, but I mean, Extreme has brought a lot to our community. But I'm not just for Extreme. I'm not just for the apartments that we approved, you know. I do think about the whole community when I make a decision. You know, I don't disregard what people say, you know, and I know every time something is approved in some neighborhood, the neighbors are upset about it. So you're not alone. I mean, you should have seen all the neighbors in here when we did the apartment approval, you know, and I just want you to know that when I make a decision, it's not for a particular business. It's for our community as a whole and how our community is going to benefit from it. You know, I really don't think that putting up this building, hopefully, maybe they could even use some of it for parking from the overflow or something when these concerts or something happen. So they would quit parking in the parking lot, you know. You wouldn't have to be so vigilant about it, but I don't know. That's the way I feel. Right or wrong, it's my thoughts.
Okay, what's the council's pleasure? Item 17.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Need a second? All right, without a second, we're gonna move on to item 18. Consideration of acceptance, approval, adoption, rejection, amendment, and/or postponement of an application for a zoning change from R1 residential to commercial general at the following location: the east 50 feet of Lot 4 in Block 50 of the City of Eufaula, commonly known as 307 East Lincoln Avenue.
Is this the same lot?
No, it's different.
It's a different lot.
Mhm.
Where's this lot at? Is it,
On Lincoln,
Next, same thing, it's just two lots there.
oh, there's two lots.
Yeah.
So it's basically,
well, technically it's not the same lot, but
yeah.
they're next door to each other.
Okay. Discussion. I'll make a motion to approve. It won't get voted on, but
It'll die for like a second if no one seconds. Yes, subject to some limitations of how often this can be reviewed.
Second, anyone? There's no second. We'll move on to item 19. Presentation of fiscal year 23 budget. Be Mr. Jones.
Mayor and Council. In front of you, I've got this year's budget request for FY '23. The kind of just a quick highlight, total appropriations, available appropriations. If you go to Appendix B, I think it's probably a good appendix to go to. And Appendix B has our combined budget summary. Should be a pullout. It's a yellow tab, on a yellow page, and it'll have where you can fold out for you. All right. So I don't know if everyone was here for the budget hearing, but so total appropriations, total available appropriations is $19,710,545,000. The reason that number is high is because we take sales tax dollars as they come in because of note obligations we have. Those funds have to be transferred to Public Works. We take care of the debt service and then transfer the balance back. So we have 19,710,000 available between the different fund transfers. We are appropriating $16,215,000, $215,730,000, which leaves a combined fund balance of $3.4 million at the end of the year. The general fund, we have I'm going to take it fund by fund real quick. General fund, we have $6.663 million available. We are going to appropriate 5.207, which will leave us an estimated ending fund balance of $1.456 million. Okay. And I can hit the big funds if you'd like me to. Some of the small ones, the police funds, I'll just go through them all real quick. Total, we'll do the next fund is airport fund. We have $29,973 available for appropriation. We're going to appropriate $25,000, and that'll leave us a fund balance of $4,973. Next line over is cemetery perpetual fund. We have a fund available appropriation of $9,685. We are going to appropriate $5,000, and that will leave a fund balance of $4,685. On the disaster emergency fund, we have $162,213 available to appropriate. We're going to appropriate $150,000. The reason that we do that is we go ahead and appropriate it now. So if we did have an emergency, we did have a storm or damage, and we need to respond to it, we've already taken care of the appropriation process, and then it'll let us respond faster to a disaster if something was to occur. The EEDA, Eufaula Economic Development Authority, we have $174,246 available for appropriation. We are going to appropriate $65,000. We'll leave $109,246 in as an ending fund balance. The Health Department Fund, this is a fund that we have to keep active just for the DHS, the Health Department building, okay? Insurance and different things like that. They require this. So we have $7,918 available. We don't budget anything out of this fund. We just leave it alone. The police fund, we have $116,219 available. We will budget $99,500. That will leave a balance of $16,719. The police drug fund, we have $9,085 available. This fund will only see deposits made into it, drug seizures, vehicle seizures, different things like that. When those assets are sold off, if we get a portion of that, that's where that goes. Okay, so we aren't going to budget anything out of that particular fund this year. Recreation fund, we have a total appropriation available of $363,531. We're going to appropriate $130,000 out of that fund. Will leave us a balance of $233,531. CIP fund, we have $291,537 available. We will budget $154,700 and also a transfer of $35,300 for a total of $190,000. The $35,300 is for our AMR payments on our automatic meters, okay? And then the $154,700, $100,000 of that is for, I'm budgeting for the splash pad to help get that finished up. Public Works Authority, we have a available appropriation of $6.416 million. We are going to budget $5,053,749 and will leave us with an ending fund balance of $1.362 million. Now, the general fund and PWA are, the largest fund balances, and that's our money. We want to keep a fund balance in there to, that's a safety net. Economy goes south, we have to deal with anything, issues along that. We want to make sure we're prepared for that. Meter deposit fund is just that. It's a fund that we deposit all the deposits for water meters and accounts. The only time money will come out of that is if we're refunding a deposit. The final fund is the PWA CWSRF. This is a fund that we put our water loans in, our sewer loans in, any grant monies. We have $5.29 million available. We're going to budget all 5.29. That way, the plan is, put that pipe in the ground, get the sewer projects done. That's what we've designated those dollars for. So we just go ahead and budget it all.
All right.
All right.
Council, any questions for Mr. Jones on this one? There's not a vote on it at this time.
If you have questions, call me, email me. Be happy to answer them. And, the plan is to bring it back to the June meeting for final approval.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jones. We're going to move on to item 20. It's consideration of acceptance, approval, adoption, rejection, amendment, and/or postponement to move into OMAG council training presented by David Weatherford.
Mayor,
So,
if I could suggest something, I think it would be, in order to move it along, I think we'd be better off to go for a recess the council meeting, then go into the public works meeting, go ahead and take care of our business we have in public works,
that'd be fine.
and then come back and reconvene for the training.
Okay, that'd be great.
All right.
Council, let's vote on that motion. I make a motion to bring item 20 back after we do public works. And then we'll let Mr. Weatherford do his presentation for us, and it'll free you guys up so you don't have to sit here through that training.
Someone should make a motion that at this point we recess this meeting or adjourn it in order to go to public works.
Okay, I'll make the motion to recess this meeting to go into public works.
Or you want to do remarks first?
Well, I just figured we'd come back and do those.
Okay.
Let's just move Mr. Weatherford down to item 24, or would be item 24. So let's just go ahead and recess and go to Public Works.
So Mayor's make a motion.
I made a
Is there
motion to
second?
go with, I'll second.
Counselor Davis?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bowser?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Counselor Upton?
Yes.
Counselor Kirk?
Yes. All yes, that motion carries. We'll go into Eufaula Public Works Authority meeting. Roll call of attendance, Ms. Cox, please.
Counselor Davis?
Here.
Vice Mayor Bowser?
Here.
Mayor Warren?
Here.
Counselor Upton?
Here.
Counselor Kirk?
All right, let's move on to the consent agenda approval of minutes. Regular meeting, April the 4th, 2022. Approval of the April 2022 payroll figures for the Eufaula Public Works Authority in the amount of $60,663.36.
I make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Counselor Davis?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bowser?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Counselor Upton?
Yes.
Counselor Kirk?
Yes.
All yes, that consent agenda passes. We'll move on to item 4, consideration of acceptance, approval, adoption, rejection, amendment, and/or postponement of pay application number 20 from Lone Hickory Cattle LLC in the amount of $59,508 from the Clean Water State Revolving Fund. I make a motion to approve this payment.
I'll second.
Counselor Davis?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bowser?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Counselor Upton?
Yes.
Counselor Kirk?
Yes.
All yes, that motion carries. We'll go on to item 5, consideration of acceptance, approval, adoption, rejection, amendment, and/or postponement to award the sanitary sewer improvement ORF-22-0016-CW to Lone Hickory Cattle LLC in the amount of $2,282,071. Mr. Jones, I take it they were the lowest bidder?
They were the low bid. We actually had 7 bidders on this project, from the 2.282 that Lone Hickory bid up to 4.664 million from Cook Consulting. We've had our engineer review the bids. We're comfortable with the bids and the line items, how they presented them. And recommendation is for you to approve the.
How many linear feet of pipe are we gonna get?
I put that in my notes. Okay, so we're going to rehab or replace or add 80 manholes. There's going to be 20,353 foot of new 8-inch sewer main. We're going to do 1,163 foot of new 10-inch sewer main. We have total right now in funding, we have 3.255. That's what we have committed. 2.7 from the CWSRF loan and 555,000 coming from IHS. All right. So the bid come in our opinion, very well, because we're going to have some money that we can go ahead and send on out and place some more sewer lines. Because that's the idea. The idea is to get as much in the ground as what we can, control and contain that I&I inflow and infiltration, which takes pressure off the wastewater plant, and then move on. Now, we're also submitting an application, a grant application tomorrow, CDBG grant application for 600,000. So we feel like that we have the points and the score on this that we could possibly get the full 600,000 and not have to have any match. But
Okay.
you never know, type thing. So
Good deal.
so anyway, so based on that and the recommendation of the county group, and after we've discussed it, reviewed it, we recommend going with Lone Hickory.
Okay, I make a motion to approve Lone Hickory on the sewer project.
I'll second.
Counselor Davis?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bowser?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Counselor Upton?
Yes.
Counselor Kirk?
Yes.
All yes, that motion carries. Item 6, adjournment of the Eufaula Public Works Authority. I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Counselor Davis?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bowser?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Counselor Upton?
Yes.
Counselor Kirk?
Yes.
All yes, that motion carries. I make a motion to
Take a 10-minute break.
have a recess. And, we'll come back after that, so. Let's have a little break. Emma Watts. And Sharon. Oh, I guess Kirby left. What's it? That's too bad. I think,
But I.
I didn't like when they said they were gonna put the metal building. Well, they had a presentation, but I wasn't involved. And those people had a right to say what they want Well, after this convention, if there really been one or two of them here, I'd probably vote for it. But when you, well, let's see, there's one, some of them said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I just, I'm just not happy with it. So he can be mad if he wants to. Probably. Hello, sweetie.
How you doing, honey?
All right, how are you? Oh, I'm trying, that's all right.
How you doing?
Good, you? Oh, that cherry lime ain't sweet.
It's a lot of factors. That's interesting.
Every once in a while, I know.
I know. It's tough. It's hard. It is. It's absolutely right. I got a good point. Yeah. It's tough. Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. You're different. You're more.
Nope. I mean, we're already got one on there.
I only volunteer for the chamber once a year now. We used to all the time.
You gotta do what's right here, you know, so. Don't get the same thing today. I'm telling you, I'm feeling for you. I'm feeling for you. I'm glad that I read the chase. I'm glad I ain't said that.
Maybe in the future he will be. Maybe in the future he will be.
Well, hey, you're running next year. I said, no, I'm not. She said, yeah. She said, I don't care, we're going to fix that. I said, what's wrong? You're wearing me out. She said, I'm going to make you run. And I said, golly. I feel like wore me out. Good Lord. I just, like, broke me, wore me out. So I just, I'll do it again. I said, like, I had to change my car. She said, you said, yes, please. I told you, you don't need to. You should be during presidential. See, that's they run at the same time.
Volunteer for your citizens.
Okay. Okay. Fine, that's three, I think. Well, when we volunteer, we sat trouble. It'll be about an hour. That's why we need to, as soon as Mr. Davis gets back, we're
I
going
am still counting on the broadband stuff.
to. Okay.
I am not giving up on that.
None of them got equal.
Yeah, taxes are done. Somebody that's working for him. Such as the I'm going to get a lot.
Have a good evening. Stay safe and watch the weather. Don't get blown away. We all have. All right. I make a motion to come out of recess, go back into our city council meeting, and let Mr. Weatherford give us some training. Let me get a second on that. Okay, your roll call.
Counselor Davis?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mauser?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Counselor
Yes.
Upton? Counselor Kirby, did he abstain?
He exited the building.
Okay.
All right, we have a quorum. Mr. Weatherford, You have the floor, sir.
Well, thanks for having me. I think Mr. Kirby's outside. I don't know if he's coming back in.
Well, let's go see. You,
Yeah, I'm never ready to start.
okay,
So we'll go on.
let's move on.
My name's David Weatherford. I work with OMAG, but I don't work for OMAG. Usually when we're here, Bill Tackett from OMAG is here with me, and we do this training around the state, and we tossed a coin, and I won the coin toss, so I got to come to Eufaula. He's out in the panhandle tonight.
Bless his heart.
I know. So,
We know it's dry out there.
it is. This training is designed for council, and we've been to about 200 different cities. It's the only training that brings it to you, and it is designed to help you do your jobs better, we hope. We know that from going to a couple of hundred cities that we see great work in a lot of places, and we appreciate what you do. So thanks for having us. OMAG put this program together to provide on-site training, because they provide training for almost every other part of the city, from police to public works, you name it. And there was no training for council members except the newly elected official training. That's a one-time training for someone who's new. But there was no training in which all of you are in the same place and hear the same information. So that's why it was created. We've been here a couple times in years past. I know Mr. Davis has been here, and maybe some others. So it's good to be back. Part of what we're going to do is take a test, so you can evaluate how your city's doing. And you have a scorecard in front of you, something like this. If you pull that out, and also want your clerk and attorney and manager to take this test. And I'm going to go through and explain each question and ask you to give an honest answer of how you think your city's doing in each of these 10 categories of city government. The test was developed to help us evaluate, or help you evaluate, how you think your city's doing, so we can work on getting better. It's not for the purpose of judging. And you'll notice we don't take the test. We want you to. I'm convinced that if we do this type of exercise every year, we'll stay focused on the big picture of what the real issues are, and we'll work at getting better, because we can. The first question on the test is, how is your city doing financially? You get a 10 if you have a written policy that requires you to set aside at least 20% of your money into a reserve fund, and you fully fund it. Okay? That would be a perfect score. You get a 1 or a 0 if you're concerned about whether you can pay payroll this month. We've seen both of those cities in this year. We've been in cities that get a 1 and cities that get a 10. If you don't have a written policy, that's fine. The majority of cities in Oklahoma do not. I would encourage you to have that on your list of things to work on in the future. Because, Mayor, one of the great legacies you and the rest of council can leave is financial stability for your city. The public expects us to be solvent, because you can make better decisions, you can do more things, and it's not just having savings for the purpose of having savings, it's having savings to deal with disasters, it's having savings to deal with opportunities that come along. That 20% reserve is a recommendation from the top financial advisor for cities in the state, Frank Crawford, and it's just a recommendation, it's not a requirement. Okay, so give a score on financial stability. The test is called a stability test because what we want in city government is long-term stability. How do we maintain good operations over a long period of time? Because the city of Eufaula is going to be here for a long time. And we want it to be stable and good as a business for a long period of time. Question number 2 is, how stable is the governing body? You get to evaluate yourselves, and your staff gets to give a score. A high score is we have good, well-intended members of our city council. It's considered an honor to serve on our city council, and we think our work's important. That would be a high score. A low score is you look around to those sitting beside you and say, I wish we could throw them all out and start over. It's uncomfortable when we give this test in those cities, but we've given this test in one of those cities this year, in which they all wrote down a 1 because they didn't like each other much.
Okay, so give a score on the governing body. It is important for long-term stability of the city that the governing body be stable. And I'm convinced that good cities with good elected officials attract good people to be a part of it. And vice versa is true. Bad city councils attract bad people to be a part of it. Okay, so think about how you evaluate that. Question number 3 is, how are your meetings? The public judges some of what we do by how well we have city council meetings. And Mayor, if I were scoring you, I would give you a good score. You did a good job. You had a good meeting. There is no doubt that land use is the most difficult issue you will ever face. We've done surveys that show that. Done surveys of elected officials from around the state. Overwhelmingly, that's the most difficult issue elected officials have to decide because there are competing interests.
Mhm.
But how are your meetings? A high score is you enjoy attending them, you hope you never miss one, you think you're doing good work, and you want to be a part of it. A low score is they are miserable, and I hope I never go to another one. And Kate, we've been to some of those cities, haven't we?
Yes, we have.
I represented one in which was about 8 years of that. Every meeting was that way. And it's no way to live, is it?
Yeah.
We want to have good meetings, and we should work toward having good meetings that are enjoyable, because if you don't, good elected officials and good staff members won't want to be a part of your city. That's the way cities become unstable over time, by having a miserable work environment. Should be a good place to work. You should enjoy your work by coming to the meetings. Part 4, how's your workforce? It's hard to do when you have the number of employees you have, but how do you rate the workforce? A high score is we have good employees who care about our city. It's considered an honor to work here, and we want it to be a good place to work for our employees. A low score is that city that has constant turnover, has lots of claims, lots of lawsuits from employees, and a constant revolving door. Okay, so rate the workforce and think about how we can make that better. Public image is number 5. It's a hard thing to evaluate. It is much more difficult in the age of Facebook and social media. That has not made it easier. What does the community, what does the public think about the city of Eufaula? A high score is they think you're competent, you do your jobs well, you're considered a leader in the region, important decisions are made here, and you're working to make the place better. A low score is that city in which there's just constant criticism and there's no trust in government of any kind. Because we want to get to the point that there's a high level of public confidence in what we do. That's really hard to do right now in city government, because no one trusts the city. No one trusts government. That's the era we're living in, and your jobs are much more difficult. But give a score of how you think the public views the city, because we want it to be better. Part 6, how do we deal with a crisis? Government exists to deal with those things that go wrong, like tornadoes and floods. And a high score is the city that feels like they're prepared, they know what to do, they've set aside some money to deal with emergencies. They have put procedures in place in which they're able to respond quickly, they're well-trained in police and fire. That would be a high score, because that's why government exists. The public expects us to be responsive when those things happen. A low score is every day's a crisis, I don't know what we do. Okay? So how well prepared are you for a crisis? Number 7 is a little bit different, the economic development, because it's different in parts of the state. I know the bill tonight in Western Oklahoma will see a city that will give a very low score on economic development, because Northwest Oklahoma is in a survival mode. They're losing population, they're not active in economic development, and they're trying to survive as a city. So a high score is the city is directly involved in economic development projects. You feel like you can make a difference. You feel like you can grow the economy, and the city has an important role in it. A low score is we've decided not to do that. That's not our job. And we see some cities in which they have no role in economic development, and that's fine. As elected officials, you get to choose. So give a score of how you think you're doing in economic development. Part 8 is planning and goal setting. How well do you as a group map out the future of what you want your city to be? The high score is we have a clear plan, we know where we want to go, we spend some time and effort in trying to figure out what we want Eufaula to be in 10 years or 20 years. Low score is we don't spend any time on that. You know, we go to a lot of cities. I've been to probably close to as many city council meetings as Kay by now. Several thousand, right?
Seems like it.
Feels like it, doesn't it, sometimes?
46 years times.
Yeah, a lot. How many of those have been
Yes,
good?
that's the time.
80%.
80% good, that's good. How much time do we spend on mapping out what you want your future to be in your city? And I would challenge you, this one is about that. The 5 of you get elected to decide the future of Eufaula. And everyone in town can have an opinion about it. The 5 of you got elected to decide that. And I like to challenge elected officials to understand that their job is much more important than many think it is. Because there are only 5 people in Eufaula who get to decide that future. You do it by approving a budget based on recommendations from staff. But 5 of you get to decide where this place is going to go in the next 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years. And the public has trusted you to do that and given you a tremendous opportunity and a lot of responsibility. And the trade-off is that you need to do that well, that planning and long-range goal setting, because in this form of government, there's some things that are his job. That's really none of your business. And he gets those because you pay him to deal with those, and Kay gets certain parts because you pay her to deal with those. But some things are just none of your business in this form of government, and other things are only your business with the advice of your staff. So sometimes we talk about things you shouldn't get involved in and things you shouldn't do, and we don't spend enough time on what you should be doing. And I would recommend that for your purposes, understand how important your job is, because it's extremely important. And it's important because the public has trusted you to do that. And there's no one else to do it. You know, we were in a city that had not had a planning or long-range planning discussion in at least 30 years. And it showed. They don't have a comprehensive plan. They haven't updated their zoning code in 30 years. They didn't know even where a copy of it was. They hadn't updated their ordinances in 20 years. Nothing. And they wondered why their city looked the way it looked. Everyone on their council for the last 20 or 30 years dealt with day-to-day routine things as they came up and nothing else. And they probably did a good job on daily routine things that came up. But no one told them they should do the more important job. What do you want your city to be? And I would encourage you to spend some time on that, because planning and goal setting should be about what do you want your city to be 5 years or 10 years from now. I'm an attorney by trade, so I have a very selfish motive in wanting cities to be stable. I didn't like working for ones that were disruptive and difficult. I wanted my job to be easier. I wanted staff's job to be easier. And it is, if we're on the same page and we work together well and we work to achieve things. And I hate to use examples of cities I represent, and I only do it because that's what I know. But in Sand Springs, we have 4 quarterly planning sessions every year. They're regular meetings, lunchtime meetings 4 times a year, in which we only talk about long-range planning. Lately, we've been doing it on these topics. We'll pick one of these topics and say, how do we get better at this? Our next one will be on public image, because that's their lowest score, because it's everyone's lowest score. How are we going to make the public image better? It's not, how is he going to make it better? How are we going to make it better? And with that focus, we hope to come out of it. We'll do one of those. We just had one recently on communication. We've had one on finances. But when we come out of the one with public image, we hope to have a resolution that all of the council can vote on and say, this is our path forward to make our city better, to improve our public image in the future, so that we can all work toward that. And I think that's a good model that works for us. Question number 9 is, how do you rank the administration? This is where the manager usually cringes and says, I didn't know you were going to ask that. It's not about him. It's about your city. We were in a city that had been through 8 city managers in 2 years. Think about that, 8 in 2 years. I'm very fortunate because I get to go there and I get to leave town, so I can say what I think. And I ask them, did you make 8 bad hires in a row? I mean, you got to get better at hiring if you did that. Maybe there's something else wrong. A high score is a stable management city in which we have stability at the management level because it's a good place to work. We attract good people and we work toward making it a good job and a good place for management because we want long-term stability, because we know in the private sector, that's how businesses are successful. A low score is that city that just has constant turnover, constantly blaming someone else for what goes wrong and never evaluating what may be the root of the problem. And those cities that just have constant turnover, it's not just at the city manager level, it's at the department head level, upper management of the city. Our goal should be to have stability and long-term stability at those positions because we know that will work to make our city better. And if we have the right fit in upper management, we should do everything within our power to make sure it stays that way and we retain good people. So give a score of how you think you're doing on administration. And question number 10 is how well do we communicate as an organization? Are we getting the information we need to make good decisions? Are we communicating well with the public? Overall, do we have a good communication approach of how we do things? And again, I'll use Sand Springs as an example because when we hired a new city manager about a year ago, he wanted our first work session to be entirely about communication because he wanted to be on the same page with council. He wanted to know, is he expected to respond to every text message at 2 o'clock in the morning or at 8 o'clock on Friday night or Sunday afternoon when he's at a movie? And are there going to be 5 different sets of rules, all 5 of you having 5 different ways you want to communicate with the manager? Are we going to be on the same page? Let's talk about those issues and understand how we're going to communicate as an organization. And I think that's a good approach. The high score is you're getting the information you need. The low score is, I wish somebody tell me what's going on around here. Okay, because we can get better at each of those. We'll collect those, Aubrey will gather those, and we'll get a composite score back to you. Again, it is not intended to judge, it's intended to help you evaluate. And, you know, we've done this in a lot of places. We've seen every score you can imagine. And really, I think it's the right way to evaluate how we're doing things. You've got a book that gives you a handout. This OMAG program is designed to help you understand some about the coverage. So there's a page that covers your insurance coverage. That's a requirement. If you complete this program and approve a resolution and pay, if you will get it to bill at OMAG, OMAG will actually pay you every year for going through this. Passed and have completed it. I understand you have a handbook. Does everyone have that? Council handbook? When we started this program, there were 2 or 3 cities around the state that had a council handbook. I would encourage you to make it a working document. And it gets back to what do you hope to leave behind? As a group, don't you want the policies and procedures and the work you did to have value? And one way it's going to have value is if it is entrenched in the culture of the organization, so that the person who comes next will know this is how and why we did things. That handbook should be something you give to every new member so that they know what they're getting themselves into. It covers basic information on the Open Meeting Act and Code of Ethics and conflict of interest and different things on how the city operates. But I would encourage you over time to make it specific to Eufaula. And Kay, I will leave you one from Sand Springs so you can see an example of what we have now. Ours is over an inch thick. Our objective has been so that if a new person gets elected, we can give them one book that explains why we do things the way we do it. It has a copy of their charter city, has a copy of the charter, has a section that explains what the public trust is, and a copy of the trust indenture, open meetings, open records, conflicts of interest, a number of topics that I think over time will help. So I'll leave you a hard copy. We have it electronically. We can get it to you. You've got one that's great. Hopefully, as you get new members, they will use it and learn from it. So that's kind of the basics of the test and handbook. I'd like to know more from each of you. I know Mr. Davis has been here a while. How much do you enjoy being on council?
I enjoy it quite a bit.
What's the hardest part of it?
Look like anything, dealing with people is always gonna be the hardest part.
It is, isn't it? I think the pandemic taught us how much we dislike being around people, didn't it? There are always competing interests, aren't there?
Yes.
And how long have you been on council now? 9 years. What's been the hardest decision?
Probably one of the hardest decisions and was the best decision when we decided to buckle up and put the new water lines in.
Yeah.
Because you knew the people was gonna buckle it, but it was in such disrepair, you gotta stop somewhere. So that was probably one of the hardest decisions we had to make, and I guarantee the people in this town right now, I think that's the best decision that we made.
Well, one of the problems with coming onto council is you inherit all those things that were done in the past that weren't fixed up to that standard, don't you?
Yes.
And it's always gonna be that way. But somebody's gotta fix it. And that's a good example of planning for the future, because that's just something that's gotta be done. Boy, it's amazing. The condition of infrastructure around the state is amazing. A lot of work to do. Good. Ms. Moser, how long have you served?
3 years.
What do you think about it?
I liked it.
Glad you did it?
Yeah.
What's the hardest part?
Controversial decisions.
Yeah. Never can satisfy everyone, can we? I mean, just, somebody's got to decide. There are certain issues that will come before you that are just going to be difficult. And I really think, like I said earlier, land use is the hardest. Just is. Okay, don't you think?
Everybody's for it unless it's in their backyard.
Nobody's ever going to be for it, but we have competing interests, we have competing financial interests. These days, and I don't want to get into the one you had tonight, you guys get to decide that, but we used to have the NIMBY group, Not in My Backyard, and then we had the CAVE group, Citizens Against Virtually Everything. Some think that's why you exist, so they can come and complain to you. But that's just a part of the job, isn't it? Yeah. Hopefully you find a way to enjoy it and make it better for those who serve after you. Mayor?
3 years
3 years, and you worked for the city previously, is that right?
for 18 years.
So you knew a lot about how the city really worked.
Right.
What do you think about being mayor?
Well, I don't like the phone calls at 12:30 at night complaining about the street.
Yeah.
But that's part of it. You have to do it and move forward.
What's the most enjoyable part?
I like the meetings.
You seem to. You seem natural to you.
I like working with the staff. The other council members are great people. So.
First meeting as mayor, what were you thinking?
I thought, ruh-roh, what have I gotten into? But it's okay. But just like Mr. Davis and Ms. Mauser said, you said you can't please everyone,
Yeah.
and you never will. We do our best and keep going along. A lot of the complaints are about the infrastructure, but it was something that needed to be done years ago.
Yeah.
And just like any other city, they're having issues with it because they put it on the back burner because they didn't have the funding.
There's never enough money.
There's never enough money. And but we're getting through it and it's going to be great.
Good. What's the hardest part amongst council for you? Anything?
Really not, no.
Good.
No?
I like to remind mayors and council members that if you have problems amongst the group, it's your problem. It's not his problem. It's not her problem. It's not the clerk's problem. City managers, city attorneys, and city clerks get in trouble when they try to fix the disagreements amongst council.
Right.
And that's not their job. That's your job.
Mm-hmm.
Starts with you.
That's right.
And
It's just like the phone calls,
yeah.
it's a problem and
But-
you have to deal with it.
I've seen I've been doing this for a long time. I've seen a lot of managers who have good intentions, who want to help council get along better with each other. And that's a good trait. But ultimately, it's your responsibility, the group of you, all of you, not one, not just the mayor. But if you will do that part, their jobs will get much easier. I'm convinced these days, when I go to cities, I tell them, and I didn't come here with any preconceived ideas of you guys. We try to do the same training every place we go. Those cities that do not have city councils that work well together will not do anything well.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to find a way to work well together. And I've got a line I've been using, it's not intended for Mr. Kirby, but because I've been using it elsewhere. When you signed up for city council, you signed up for a team sport. And we should think of it that way. It is a team sport. And if you don't want to be a part of the team, you should either go join the legislature or play golf, because those are individual sports.
Mm-hmm.
City is a team sport. And again, that wasn't something for him. I know he used to be in the legislature, but.
Well, you're absolutely right. If we don't play as a team, we're not going to go anywhere.
No, it's that simple.
And that's the way I've always tried to handle it. And I think the other council members have done an excellent job of that. Just coming together as a team and discussing items and issues.
Get on the same page.
Get on the same page and communicate a little bit, then we go a lot further and get a lot more things done that way.
It's no different than basketball. That's the absolute key to success for a team, is to find a way to play well together. It's not who's the most talented always. It's who will work the best together. And if you do that, you can have long-term success, and I guarantee you'll enjoy it more. Most of you. Those who don't enjoy playing that way are not the good teammates. And we've all dealt with those. But if you can find a way to work well together, you will be more successful. We know that. It's just the way it works. Mr. Upton, how long have you been on the council?
1 year.
1 year. What do you think? You're the new guy.
I'm the rookie.
Well, let me tell you one prediction, because we've done lots of surveys. And when we've surveyed elected officials and asked, what should the new person expect? The overwhelming answer is the new person will get the call from everyone in town who's tried to get something at City Hall and been told no, because they start all over again with a new guy. I bet you've had a few of those.
Yeah, phone's pretty busy.
There's usually a reason they've been told no.
I give them his number.
I like that.
Well, now you know the truth.
Yeah.
Him and Tom.
That really is teamwork.
Thanks.
So what do you think about it?
I like it. I like dealing with the officials here. I guess I have a hard time telling people no sometimes, so I like to help as much as I can.
Yeah.
I'm learning to say no more often, sitting in this seat. I know it makes people upset sometimes, but I want to make the right decisions from my heart.
Yeah.
To make sure, and sometimes it may not be the right decision at that time, but.
I would hope it's very rare that you have to make a decision immediate, that has a big impact. That you have time, I hope you have time to study it and are not afraid to say, boy, we need to think about this some more and come back later and work on it.
Mm-hmm.
We had an elected official when we did this training not long ago who said that he was a private business guy, and he just is frustrated that private business world, we get to do things immediate, and he got to make decisions, and he expected the city to do that. And I reminded him there's one big difference. It's not your money. It's someone else's money. It's designed to move slower because of that. So hopefully that helps. What do you hope to accomplish? You're 1 year in. What do you hope the city accomplishes? If you could say, boy, when my time's up, I hope we've done this. What would it be?
really just to complete the projects we're on right now, because it's been such a, more or less a blessing for the whole town as a whole. You know, the water lines, now we're looking at the sewer lines, things like that. That's just big improvements, and to me, it's just stepping stones to future improvements.
Yeah.
So hopefully in the near future, we can start working on the streets and things like that after we get the lines in the ground.
Good. Good. All of those are important. Jeff, what do you think? You worked here before, and you come back and you're saying,
I enjoy it. I mean, this is, everyone has their calling. I enjoy it. I enjoy doing something it's the greater good. It's a way that you can make improvements and you can affect a large number of people in a positive way. Yes, you do have to tell them no sometimes, but I think as long as you can talk about the whys and the basis for your decision and be reasonable about it and sensible about it, people will respect that. And
I heard the city manager recently, he was asked, what's his job? And he said, this was from a newly elected councilman, tell me what your job really is. And he said, my job is to tell them no, your job is to not fire me for telling them no.
Well, I'm surprised Jeb hasn't blocked my phone number by now. I'm waiting on that to happen.
Sometimes you have to be the bad guy.
that goes along with the territory, just like Todd was saying, but sometimes it's necessary.
What do you expect from them?
What I expect is they communicate. If they communicate well and we think out our decisions, have good conversation, good discussions, and then you get that information back and forth, you can, and they're sound decisions.
Clear expectations.
That's right.
And I like to remind the elected officials, he took the hardest job in the world because he's got 5 bosses that are constantly changing. And he's expected to be a mind reader and to know what each of the 5 of you want in communication and budget and projects. And the best thing you can do to make it easy for him is, as a group, set clear goals, clear expectations, and all be on the same page on what you're trying to accomplish. And if you do that, his job gets easier. So hopefully you do that well. Good city councils do that well as a group. So
we have that here.
That's good.
We do.
And how to sustain it, how to maintain it, and working toward that. We've seen in a lot of places, sometimes something just goes wrong and somebody gets blamed. And hopefully when things go wrong, you don't just blame him and say, boy, that's his fault. It's got to be, if it's a strong team, it's all of our faults, and it's up to all of us to deal with it.
Correct. That is right.
It really is, and avoid the blame game. Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot. What's the hardest part about being city attorney?
The hardest part is, I know, if the laws, let's say they were in a book, although it would be about 100 volumes.
Yeah,
because our
it is,
statutes,
isn't it?
our statutes are about 100 with the Constitution. If the laws were in a book and you could flip and look and see what the law was and just apply it, you wouldn't really need an attorney, and you wouldn't need a courthouse, and you wouldn't need a court of appeals and a Supreme Court. The problem is that gray area.
Oh, yeah.
Where you read this law and you think it's this way, and you read this law and you think it's this way, and here's people saying, how is it? How is it?
Yeah.
Can we have this kind of a facility in Eufaula, or is it not allowed? And you read those laws and you just can't really come to a clear conclusion, but you have to go with something. The hardest is the gray area.
Think about it.
Gray area.
We saw a year ago or 2 years ago, the Oklahoma Supreme Court said that the city of Norman violated the Open Meeting Act in approving their budget and found their budget to be void, $100 million budget. And I guarantee you, if we took 100 experienced city attorneys around the state and asked them to look at what was on, and they did it because of the way they wrote their agenda. and said, consideration and possible approval of the budget was not clear enough to amend it during the approval process. And found that because of that, it was void. Who would have ever thought that, right? You would have told them the same thing I would have told them. That agenda item's perfectly fine. You can amend the budget because consideration and possible approve includes amending. That's what I would have told them. That's what their city attorney told them. Oklahoma Supreme Court didn't agree, so they're wrong. They had to go back and reapprove a budget in March, that far into the year. That Supreme Court said was void and illegally approved because of that. And it's just that, isn't it? Who would have thought that was even gray area? I wouldn't have.
And A may call me and present the facts one way and I give them one opinion, but when B calls me, the facts they present sound slightly different, and so on and so on. It's those gray areas that get me.
And detail matters.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know.
But if we just had one book, we wouldn't be needing it.
That's
Just
true.
look up the law or clack it into a computer and get the answer. And
Or if they wouldn't change it, they keep changing it.
yes.
Howard, what do you think? City clerk's opinion matters a lot. How long have you worked for the city?
I've been with the city 13 years. I've been the city clerk for 5.
Good experience?
Yeah, it's been a good experience.
What's the worst part about dealing with council and not them individually,
I
but
don't think
what's the
it's-
hardest part about?
I think the hardest part of dealing with the council, and maybe a part that they don't understand as staff that works at City Hall, is that they make the laws or the rules that we have to live by, and we're willing to do that. But I think the thing that we need the most from them is that once you make that rule, stand behind us.
Yeah.
You know, when we're telling people no at the counter, to stand behind that, because that's a rule that you put into place.
Yeah, mayor probably understands it better than most because he worked for the city, but most don't understand how much you get criticized day to day, right?
I told Jeb today, I said, you're gonna get 2 complaints.
Oh, it's amazing what the city staff has
It
to
is.
deal with.
Yeah.
I mean,
You understand that because you
Yeah, I mean,
lived through it, but it's constant. Isn't it?
yeah, it's constant. I mean, streets, water, sewer, it's everything. And they catch the brunt of the storm, I should say. They catch it all.
Not all of it can be as easy as being a police chief these days, right? Everybody you come in contact is glad you're there. They're just thrilled you stopped them. How hard is it to be a police chief in these days?
And you follow it?
Any place.
It's the easiest job we ever had.
Yeah. Good.
This council doesn't, I would say they've never questioned me, but it's just a very simple explanation because they just trust my decision. So I don't ever have a problem with the council, and this city supports their police department unbelievably.
Good.
All the officers work very well with the citizens. And
It's just tough work these days. There's a lot of.
Since he took over,
Yeah.
the officers work well with the citizens.
You know, and he said something real important, a high level of trust. How do we get that amongst everyone? Because I'm convinced if we can get to a high level of trust, both toward staff and staff toward council, it gets to just what the mayor said. We work well as a team and we work well together. And it just takes hard work to get there, doesn't it? Part of it is open communication and everybody being on the same page. And what's your job with the city? Oh, you have to work for a guy who knows his job well. Is that Mark?
No, it's a great group of people to work with, and I actually have a lot of fun like them every day.
Good, good. You want it to be a good place to work because we all know employees are more productive if it's a good place to work. And that's true of management too. They will be more productive if it's a good place to work. Well, I've talked a long time, so I'll give you the chance to ask any questions you want to ask. I don't have a whole lot else to add. I would encourage you, we'll get the test results back to your manager, and I would encourage you to read them in the light of asking, how can we get better? There's some suggestions in your book that we've left with you, the OMAC book, some suggestions from others around the state of how to get better in each of the categories. Use whatever those are that help you. We have lots of resources that OMAG can get to you and provide to help with any of those. This should be an annual thing, and hopefully it's something that you can build on and just get better at. I appreciate coming to a meeting where you do a good job. We were in a city, I won't name which one, this year, in which one of the council members gave a combined score of 9 for their city, 9 out of 100. And they honestly believed it was that much of a failure. And I wanted to ask them, why do you want to be a part of it? If you think it's that much of a failure, and how are you going to fix it? And it's someone you just couldn't have that conversation with. And sometimes someone like that is just difficult for everyone. It doesn't help the city in the long run. You've got to get everyone on the same page and work well as a team. So, any questions of me on any of those topics or anything we can do to help?
Do you keep statistics so you can see what our score was last time
Yes.
we did the survey? And
We'll
you
send
can
you
tell
those.
us if we're going up or
Yeah, Aubrey will email those out
We're
and
going
we'll send.
Yes, we're going up.
Yeah.
budget is certainly better.
Well, it sounds like it. And your ending fund balance sounds great. That probably wasn't true 5 years ago, was it?
And you know,
No.
that helps everything else.
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
The public expects us to be financially sound. They just do. Same as the local bank. And it is amazing. We see cities that are broke. One of the largest cities in the state had a debate on their agenda of whether they should change their reserve policy from 2% to 1%. And their financial advisor recommended against it, and with a split vote amongst council, they did it. Because they thought 1% reserve was enough. And it's just craziness, isn't it? So that's why we do this training. We see a lot of situations that could be different. So hopefully it helps. Anything else?
well, I'm really proud of this group, and I would love to know how we compare also to other towns.
Yeah. We didn't include it tonight, but I can tell you statewide, crisis management is always the highest. Statewide average is about a 70. So when you get your score back, think about that. We've seen less than 10 cities that score above a 90. There just aren't many. Most, and we don't take the test, you guys do. Most are pretty honest in how they evaluate themselves. So very few who ever score over a 90. So if you're in the 80s, you've done really well. I think that's a good score. Public image is consistently the lowest every place. It's hard to deal with. And I usually point out there's an interesting statistic. I think the most interesting, when we break it down by population around the state, there is zero difference in scores based on population. The quality of how well you do your job has nothing to do with how many people happen to live around you. And think about that. It shouldn't, should it?
Right.
We have seen great elected officials and great mayors in some of the smallest places and some horrible ones in some of the biggest places. And we've been to all but Tulsa and Oklahoma City. We've been at every other size city. So population has nothing to do with it. You can do great work here. Really, I just think that's an interesting stat. One of the worst scores we've seen is a city of over 20,000, city manager city, county seat city. The fourth time we went there, they got up to a 51. It took 4 times. They didn't invite us back after that. Their council would not sit together when we did the training. 2 of them sit in the back of the room, weren't speaking to each other.
Wow.
Their scores on meetings were extremely low. And again, I get to say what I want and leave town. So I ask them why they keep doing that. Because meetings is entirely within your control. No one else's. You guys have good meetings because you guys control them well and conduct them well. They have bad ones because they control them and conduct them poorly. But they didn't want to change it. And An interesting stat, I won't say which city it is, but when OMAG runs a report of which cities have the most claims in the state, they rank first.
That'd be one of mine.
But that's why OMAG wants this training, is because there's a direct relation between the number of claims they get and how well the council does their job.
What's their population?
Over 20,000.
No, that's.
But
you know, it is harder and harder. The public makes it harder for good people to want to do it.
It is. Social media has made it much harder. There's so much criticism of what you do. There just is unfair criticism, isn't it? When we take surveys of staff members, city employees, their number one complaint about their job is the unfair criticism. Because it's constant.
Well, what we get at the counter is, and Jeb, bless his heart, he knows, and he backs us 100%. I'm not saying that at all, and I know the council does too. But that's what the girls get, is they get degraded, they get cussed at, they get told how sorry they
Hung
are.
up on.
And one person actually told one of my girls that they wish she got cancer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, and so they get treated very poorly and expect to receive something nice from them. And then when they don't get what they want, they're like, well, I'm gonna talk to the council member about your job.
Right. That story is going on every day, every city all around the state. It is the worst part about the job. And there's so little we can do about it. That's why it takes, I hate it. I know of a city in Tulsa Metro, not one of mine, unfortunately. But a councilman who called a city employee a liar during a meeting who was doing a presentation. Well, you get that at work all day. You don't need it here. Right? I mean, so being treated well by council helps, doesn't it? That's one thing they can do to make your jobs better, to make the meetings better, and to treat each other with civility.
Right. I mean, and the girls they just deserve respect. I mean, they're just like any other human that walks into our office. And, Jeb actually put up a sign. He says, we're not going to tolerate it. We will call the police.
Yeah. Treat us with civility. It's not much to ask, is it?
But let me tell you, on cutoff days, it can get pretty rough up there.
Well, thanks for letting me be a part of it, and hopefully you find a good way to enjoy it and enjoy your service.
I have one question.
Sure.
What did Shakota do to get their
I said when they sell
on
the
this
t-shirts.
cup and on your emblem? What do we have to do to get our?
I told them we need to do a cup with a fish on it.
That's
There you go. There you go.
It's amazing. They did that complain a little bit about having some of the names on the side of it. So if you are ever in Edmond and have a chance to go by the OMAG offices, I would encourage you to. I'm an outside contractor. I've worked for them for a long time. I've known most of the people there, and you mentioned Matt Mudd, but they have a tremendous staff that is great for everyone. Susie Paulson is their CEO. She was an attorney there for a long time. Just could not be more thrilled to work with a group than I am with OMAG, because they, for a generation, have really done a lot to make Oklahoma cities better. And I know with police, with Lexipol and training and all of those things, that they're providing a lot of things that if Bill were here, he would say, because they don't have to pay premiums to fat cats in New York, they get to give it back in member services. So hopefully that helps with every part of what you do.
We thank you, sir.
Well, thanks for having us, and hopefully you don't get storms tonight. I think
Well, you have a safe trip back.
Yeah.
Thanks, and we'll be in touch. I'll get you sorted.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we'll move on to item 21, remarks, inquiries by city council. Mr. Davis.
None.
Ms. Mauser?
I don't have any.
I don't either. Announcements. Anybody have any announcements they'd like to make?
Remember Heritage Days is coming up.
I can talk about that. The planning and zoning training, which is, I sent an email out that we had to cancel it because of a medical issue with the trainer. It'll be in June, at some point in June. Haven't set that date yet, but it'll be on a Friday in the afternoon. We're still gonna stick with Friday in 1 to 3:30, that time window. But, I'll probably know middle of May, here in a couple of weeks. The gentleman had gallbladder surgery. That's what he had to have, so, had a couple of weeks.
Well, I'm still taking Friday off.
All right, item 23, adjournment. I make a motion to adjourn the city council meeting.
I'll second.
Councilman Davis?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mauser?
Yes.
Councilman Warren?
Yes.
Mayor Warren? Councilman Bell?
Yes.
Oh, yes, that motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank y'all for coming tonight. Watch the storms, watch the weather, stay safe.